top 10. Jerome could be in the conversation.
What is poppin', y'all? It is your boy Guardy3. And of course, right next to me is my co-host, the guy who knows just as much sports, if not more than I do. It's Mo Betta. Mo, how you doing today?
Hey, what's good to everybody out there? Thank you for joining Brett and I on the N1 podcast on a Friday evening. Every time I see the intro, that Mo guy seems a little unstable. So yeah,
I'll watch out for him. Seems very
Brett, you're solid, but Mo needs some help. Yeah.
That Mo guy is very familiar. Very familiar. So you know how we do. It's about that time. Some underrated player of the week. We always love those. For anybody just tuning in, we like giving shout outs to players who we think are underrated and underappreciated now or in the past. So, Mo, why don't you kick us off? Who's your underrated player this week?
You know what? I'm going to reach back a little bit, not too far. My underrated player is a guy who was an undrafted player, started his career out overseas playing in France, made his NBA debut, I think, in 96, 97 with the Heat, spent some time with the Celtics, went back to the Heat. He bounced around a little bit, but found a home, found a role, something that he excelled at always, even when he was kind of a journeyman, was defense, but he took it to another level when he found his home in San Antonio. I'm talking about three-time NBA champion Bruce Bowen, who became an all-NBA defender. So all-NBA 8 times. If you ever saw Bruce Bowen play, not an elite athlete, but he played angles, he had quick feet, quick hands, and he knew how to get into guys' head. What I like the most about Bruce Bowen, a student of the game, he knew that some right-handed guys, a lot of right-handed scorers, they hard dribbled left when they wanted to pull up. He could anticipate that. He would beat them to their spots. What Bruce Bowen is a big proponent of, if you watch him, is he did his work before who he was guarding got the basketball. So a lot of guys get at you once you get the basketball. Bruce Bowen is in your shirt before you get the basketball. He's beating you to your spot. He's talking to you. He's getting in your head. Bruce Bowen is one of the elite perimeter defenders in the NBA. And in a time when the NBA was shifting and you couldn't just be, let's call it a specialist, you had to be more than that to stay on the floor. Bruce Bowen made himself into an effective three-point shooter by mastering the corner threes. So Bruce Bowen, 3-time champ, 8-time All-NBA player. That is my underrated player this week.
Yeah, honestly, that's a great pick. I can't even be mad. That dude was elite, and you could tell he had you scouted. He did his homework before the game even started. There's a good chance he already had you beat. He knew all your moves. He knew what spots to pick. You could tell he was a true student of the game. He outworked almost anybody when it came to defense.
Facts.
I say, Mo, my underrated player. I think you're familiar with him because he went up against the three-peat Lakers. He's one of the few guys that actually gave Shaq fits because he was just as big as Shaq. He couldn't really move him. I'm talking about for the Portland Trailblazers.
Sabonis.
Arvydas Sabonis, the original Sabonis.
Yeah.
Man, unfortunately, by the time he got to the NBA, we got an older couple injury, like a bit more of a washed Sabonis than what we saw internationally. But if you watch Arvydas Sabonis, he's one of the great passers for a big man that we had seen up to that point. The way he was able to pass the ball was phenomenal. And defensively, you couldn't move him. Even Shaq had struggles against the Blazers, and a big reason was he just couldn't move Sabonis like he could bully guys like Rick Smits and all these other guys, but Sabonis, he just couldn't move him. And he had moves on offense. You could dump it to him in the post and get a bucket. So I think he's underrated, and I think a big part of that is because, he didn't win a ring, he didn't get an accolades, but I think he's a guy that should not be lost in history, so I'm going to go with Arvydas Sabonis as my underrated player.
I love the pick of Sabonis. Anybody that's out there that's a big NBA fan, I would tell you, if you've never heard of him, you've certainly watched his son DeMontis do his thing for the Sacramento Kings. What I would say is this: you can YouTube Arvydas Sabonis, the younger version of him. There are highlight reels of him. If you want to know how great he was in his prime, ask David Robinson. He ate David Robinson alive. In his prime, Arvydas Sabonis was a dominant player. And like you said, it wasn't until he was long past his prime that he began his NBA career. And even then, if you want to call it the washed version, he was a hell of a basketball player. Incredibly high basketball IQ, incredible passer, could step out and shoot the three, could post, finish with either hand. And like you said, he was a man mountain. Like, he was the one guy that I thought he made Shaq think the game a little bit more. Shaq had to find a way to outquick him because he couldn't just bully him. So I'm with you. That's a great pick. Arvydas Sabonis is one of those guys that he gets lost in history. But if you look at his overall career, I'm talking about everything he did overseas in his prime, along with what he did in the NBA. I'm actually shocked, and I'm not sure about this. I'm actually shocked that he's not in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think even just for his accomplishments and how he played overseas, that he should at least get a strong consideration.
Correct.
And that's the only reason why I quote unquote call them wash Sabonis, because he definitely wasn't the player he was overseas. Y'all should definitely look up those highlights. But even NBA Sabonis was still an incredible talent. Drazen Petrovic or Brandon Roy, both phenomenal selections.
I love Petro. Man, God rest his soul. Just cut down right when he was becoming an elite player. Man, but we just got a small sample size of him. He was terrific. Brandon Roy, great call. Cottrell was actually one of my favorite players. I'm a Laker fan, but I don't care what anybody says. I loved watching Brandon Roy and Kobe Bryant go back and forth at each other. Great matchups.
Man, for a while we thought the trio of Brandon Roy, Greg Oden, LaMarcus Aldridge was going to run the league, and unfortunately injury said otherwise. When those three played together, they were 50-12 in their 62-game sample size, so they should have been elite, and it's unfortunate that I used the word should have there. And then, of course, I actually do have a fun two. We're going to switch over since, I know Cottrell's a big college guy, so I figured,
you got picks? You got puppy picks?
It's the perfect time for a puppy prospect, I think.
Let's do the thing.
So I got one this week, and I tried to look for somebody who I think could be good in the league, but it's flying under the radar. I almost tried to find kind of an underrated prospect, and I went with Johnny Furphy from Kansas. Now, I think this kid's going to be a great role player, and I think he's a late first-round pick. Now, he's got some flaws. Offensively, don't ask him to create anything. He can't create. He needs to put on some weight. He's got some problems on defense, but I think overall he has something's wrong with him that I think NBA coaching can be fixed. Not to mention he's a very high IQ player. He has great hands to catch the ball in traffic. And on the few touches that he does get, he's an efficient shooter. He's shooting 37% from three. And I think as a 6'9" forward, that is more than enough to really space out the defense. And my favorite part is this kid's super active on defense. Like, does he still have to work on his individual defense? Yeah, he's got to work on things like positioning and his individual one-on-one defense. But once again, I love the kid's motor already. And I think the other things like individual defense, that's things that we can work on. You can't teach motor, and Furphy has it. So I think that he's going to be great on a contender.
Let me ask you this, Brett. What is a player comp for him?
He almost reminds me of someone like Keegan Murray coming out of college. Somebody who's raw, can't really create their own shot, but he's very intelligent off the ball, timely cuts.
I was watching him, and you said Keegan Murray, which is a good one. I thought he was kind of a cross between Keegan Murray and Grayson Allen.
Grayson Allen is a good one too, honestly. Now, I think if you draft him, as long as you understand that he's limited on what he can do on offense, and you give him a specific role, then he'll be good. Like, he's excelling in Kansas because they've narrowed down his decision making, and they've kind of given him a really specific role on that team. I think as long as you do that in the NBA, you don't give him too much responsibility. I think he can make a nice impact as a role player on a contender.
I think he would be a good fit on a team that plays up tempo, that spaces the floor.
I think he should go back to school. You think he could be a lottery pick next year? That is also a viable option, honestly.
I hope if he doesn't, I would prefer. I'm like Cottrell, get another year of seasoning. But you know these guys nowadays, they have no patience. But if he waited another year, polished himself up, and built himself back up, I think Cottrell's right. I think he's a lottery pick if he comes out next season, not this coming, but next season.
Yeah, I could see it. If he can add some, I think he just really got to work on that self creation.
Right.
Yeah, he just got to work on attacking with the ball in his hands. If he can
Right.
figure out how to do that and just more effectively like attack closeouts in the half court, then his draft stock skyrockets for me.
You read my mind. He doesn't have to cross anybody up, but you could if he could just work better at straight line drives and attacking closeouts more aggressively instead of settling, I think that would add more to his game.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think there's a good chance that he does come back to school. No, I'm not putting him as a lock for this year, but like you said, Mo, I think a lot of these kids can be impatient, so I think there's a chance that he comes out. I think this right now, as projected, I think he'll be picked in the back end, like in the 20s, like somewhere between 20 and probably like 26, somewhere in like the early 20s. But if he goes back to school, comes back another year, I agree with Cottrell 100%. He could come back in the lottery.
You know how this goes though in this era. You only need one person to tell you you're ready, right?
Yeah.
One person to get in your ear and go, you're ready right now. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't develop and become a very good NBA player, but his family, his coaches, he would set himself up for a lot more success with another season of college under his belt.
Yeah, I agree, and like I do hope he does go back for another year. But if he doesn't, that's what I think of Johnny Furphy from Kansas. I think you're looking at a first rounder for sure, who could get even better with another year of seasoning. Now, well, why don't we stick a little bit with college, and we'll hop right over to Miss Caitlin Clark.
Oh, I know you wanted to get into this. Yeah, go ahead. Do your thing.
Oh, absolutely, because she got an offer for $5 million from Ice Cube to come play in the Big Three. And I just have to add in that our favorite guy, Gilbert Arenas, said she wouldn't score a point. I have so many things to say about, this topic, and I already made a little TikTok about it, but Mo, what do you think about the offer, and what do you think about Gilbert saying she wouldn't even score a point?
So let's start with the offer. She would have a decision to make because in the WNBA they have rules you can't play for two leagues. So she either have to play for the WNBA or she would literally have to commit to the Big Three and play in the Big Three. She couldn't do both. So I don't see her going to the Big Three. One, it puts her behind the 8 ball because the Big Three is a half court game, right? No, so I'm with Cottrell. I had an argument about that earlier. I'm like, you do realize that most of the guys in the Big Three are 45 or older, and yes, they were former pros. Very few of them were stars though, and they're 45 or older. The advantage they would have on her is it's in a half court set, so she wouldn't have the freedom to move as much. They could, and if they could physically get their hands on her, yes, they could slow her down. But what I said is the only way you're going to actually be able to slow her down is if her teammates are in on it and they're helping you stop her. Because if they're real teammates, they're going to set picks for her so she can come off those picks and light people up. She will be shooting nothing but 4-pointers and eating them alive. The idea that she would not score, look, there's two things that can be true. Gilbert Arenas knows a ton about basketball, but he says a lot of things that make you wonder how much he knows about basketball. But he does that because he knows he'll get reactions. He's going to she would light those old men up. They would get frustrated. And here's the thing. The guy that has to guard her, Brett, you don't think he's nervous? He might be trying to be aggressive, but when she crosses him or he gets pinned on a screen and she raises up, it's money all day long. Here's the reality. She's not going to play in the big three. She's not. She's going to go play in the WNBA and do her thing there. I think Ice Cube's offer is a great offer, but I think his offer, Brett, is more of a publicity stunt because he knows once he made that offer, Gilbert Arenas, in the conversation that you and I are having right now, that was going to happen, right? Automatically, Gil's going to say, "What's she going to do?" I heard Kenyon Martin say, "What's she going to do? Take the ball out?" She don't need to take the ball out. She's playing against 45 and 50-year-old men. You think they're going to run? Even in a half-court set, they're going to run with her? I don't think so. I think not only would she score, she'd be one of the leading scorers, if not the leading scorer in the big three. And honestly, I don't know if that would be good for the big three.
Yeah, I thought this was insane because I feel like when it comes to that conversation, you're focusing on the wrong side of the ball.
Right.
Because I think the question, if you're questioning Caitlin Clark playing against men in the big three or however, I don't think the question should be, can she score? Because she can score. Yes, she has a very quick release. It's not like these leagues really allow that much physical contact. So it's not like you can just hand check her to oblivion. So I think you can scheme up plays. I think she does have good enough moves that she's taken a lot of these guys off the dribble and creating enough separation to rise up. I find this conversation really funny because I think everybody just seems to really want to hate. The reality is, if you want to question anything, the question should be, how would she do against the physicality defensively? That's a question I'll entertain because it makes sense she'd struggle with that.
And but that part is fair. Brett, that part is fair because you know what I know. Everybody that she guards, what are they going to do? They're going to take her. They're going to take her in the post, right? So if you want to question where she may struggle, it would be in that area. But from an offensive standpoint, come on, man. If you know basketball, if you know, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think offense would be an issue. It'd be defense, but like you said, we won't have to entertain that. I believe that, at the end of the day, she's going first overall in the WNBA draft. Ticket prices are already reflecting it.
And look, I enjoy the big three. It has entertainment value. But I would argue, even though she's playing against men, does it benefit her to be dominating over 45 and 50-year-olds? What does she get out of that? You know what I'm saying? If anything, she could lose if she didn't play as well. And I think she'd play fine. Like you said, I think we both agree defense, if they get her in the post, could be a struggle. But again, that's what teammates are for, right? If somebody tries to post her up, you double team that person, make them kick out and keep it moving. You don't leave her out on an island. If she's got good teammates who know basketball, Brett, the first thing they're going to do, they're going to give her the basketball and set a pick for her and let her do her thing.
That's fair. I think that would be the driving point right there is do it for the $5 million. And maybe if you still play at the level we expect you to, you can still make your money in the WNBA the year after. But
well, Brett, my thing is she's not, so she'll never make that kind of money in the W. But here's the thing, because Q put it out there that she's he's offering her $5 million. You don't think that her and her team are going to go to the WNBA and go, their offer was $5 million. And I think the highest paid player makes $250,000 for the WNBA. So I'm guessing Caitlin Clark and her team are going to come in there and go I'm looking for at least $1 million. If I can't get $1 million from y'all, then I guess I got to go bust up some old dudes.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting to see. That is absolutely for sure.
And remember, the WNBA, Brett, their licensing deal, that's up next season, right? Who's the biggest name in women's basketball right now?
Oh, yeah, Caitlin Clark. I feel like she has all the leverage.
She has all the leverage. Oh, you guys don't want to give me that $1 million? I know your licensing deal is up. I know you're going to need some name recognition. But if you don't want to pay me, I'll go play half-court basketball, not put no real wear and tear on my body and light some guys up and make $5 million. I'll go do that for a year.
Oh, Cottrell says it does not happen at the same time as the WNBA season. All right. Did not realize that. Okay. Well, there we go. Maybe now it becomes a little bit of a question because now you can make $5 million in the offseason, and then
I don't think she does it.
I don't think
I think I mean we can entertain it because it's entertaining to talk about, but I think she uses it as a bargaining chip. I don't think she will never set foot in playing the big three. It'll never happen.
cool. What's good? CC better take that bread. Well, you know what? I think our next topic is about taking, but it's the Rockets taking that final play-in spot from the Warriors. The Rockets are streaking, and the Warriors are faltering. Draymond cannot stay in the game for more than 3 minutes, apparently. And I'm not going to lie, I'm here for this. I want to see the Rockets get in over the Warriors. Fresh blood would be a lot of fun in the play-in. I'm a huge fan of the play-in, and seeing the Rockets crash it this year would be a great thing for me.
I think the play-in is a great thing. I will say this though. We talked about this before. Dynasties very rarely end well, right? You know what I'm saying? They very rarely end on a high note. And you're looking at Golden State, and it's the end, right? It's the end of this dynasty. But let's not forget, Brett. We got Steph, we got KD, and LeBron and AD, and they're all fighting to get into they're going to be in the play-in. You know what I'm saying? These are transcendent players fighting to get into the play-in. I think it will be interesting to see the Rockets catch the Warriors, get into the playoffs. Here's what I'll say. If they get the right matchup, should they make it in, I think the Rockets are going to have a terrific series. Like if they matched up against Oklahoma City, I don't think they beat Oklahoma City, but I think that's a great series. If they match up against the world champions, that's a short series.
Great game by Clemson over Arizona tonight. That's fair. Clemson knocked off Arizona 77-72 tonight to move on to the next round. Congratulations to Clemson.
And I think I forgot, I saw a comment that someone said she might have scoring issues. I can't see that. Not unless they allow hand checking, and I don't remember that they do. But the only way I can see her having a hard time scoring is if she got bad teammates who don't know basic basketball on how to set picks.
I was off for the Rockets getting in until Sengun got hurt.
I didn't know Sengun got hurt. Oh.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Thank goodness for Jalen Green, because he has gone on an absolute heater, and that's how they've been able to really stay in.
Brett, we're watching Jalen Green become the player that they hoped he could be when they drafted him. I mean, he has been a beast during this winning streak, and they're handing him the ball late in games, and he is eating whoever in front of him alive. Like right now, like I said this morning, if you look at what he's done, Brett, over the last 2.5, 3 weeks, he's been one of the 5 best players in basketball.
Yeah, no, I agree. Over this winning streak, he's been on an absolute heater, and he looks like he's finally figuring it out. The question is, I guess, when Sengun comes back and starts taking into some of his touches, can he maintain this level of play? Because that's really when he seemed to struggle. When Sengun was there and taking into his touches, it seemed that his production was down. But
I agree. So what they need to do is, instead of just walking the ball up and throwing the ball in the post of Sengun, they need to run more 2-man game with Sengun and Jalen Green, right? Let Sengun roll or pop out or pick and pop, because he can shoot a little bit. That way, Jalen Green is still active. He can be a playmaker or a finisher. Like, let's agree on this. Sengun is unique. He's a dog, but their best player, if he's at his best, is Jalen Green. If Jalen Green is going to play like this, he's special. If Jalen Green is going to play like this, if they make the playoffs, whoever they play, they're going to be a tough out.
To me, the Rockets are a beautiful thing. That it shows you how important coaching is, right? Because you take the same team almost. Like, even take the new additions they have, give them Steven Silas, and they are so terrible, but switch the coach to Ime Udoka, this team looks great. Like, to me, the Rockets are almost a prime example of the importance of coaching in the NBA.
I thought Udoka said something early in the season when they were obviously struggling when he said, "We're going to get this thing turned around, but we're going to get it turned around when everybody understands what their role is on this team." Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And that was big because there are some young guys on the Rockets who see themselves as stars, but in reality, they're role players. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
once you fall into your role and you take a step back, the team became better. They started listening to guys like Jeff Green. You started getting a consistent, and I want to give them credit where credit is due, Brett. They've been getting a consistent game more times than not from Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks has been very good for them. Van Vliet has been very good for them. So I love that they've mixed the veteran presence with some of their younger talent. And then again, like you said, coaching does matter. It's pretty much the same team. All you really did was you upgraded your coach, and he was able to at least in some ways relate to the younger stars in a way that Steven Silas never could do.
Let's see. John Suggs has a question. Are the Pelicans pretenders?
Yes, yes,
I
yes,
mean,
yes.
this one's tough for me because even with a healthy Zion, I never had them as contenders.
No, then well, what? Let me ask John this: do you mean are they pretenders in the sense that you don't see them as a playoff team, or are you talking about pretenders in that they're not a championship contender? Because if that's the question, they absolutely are pretenders. They are not a championship contending team. They would be good to win a first round series.
I really think the Pelicans in the future dudes need to start looking at upgrades at point guard. I love CJ McCollum, but I think it's starting to become very clear with him. He's better suited against second units.
Thank you, Brett.
First
100%
round
in
pick.
agreement. Love CJ McCallum, but at this stage in his career, even though he can still get you buckets, he would have so much more value for them if he was their sixth man and they went out and got another guy to be a shot creator and to run their offense. Somebody younger, somebody quicker, more athletic. But CJ has value to me coming off the bench and being that instant offense guy.
First round exit. I do think
Yeah.
that right now,
John,
as it stands, I think they're a first round exit.
agreed
Now,
100%, John.
now it's tough because if the season were to end today, and I think this really depends on where the standings go,
Oh, that's true.
they're matched up against the Clippers, who have been reeling. So
In that case, that might be the best series of the first round. Let me take that back. I forgot that it'd be a 4-5 matchup. I would favor the Clippers, but because I would favor the Clippers, my guess is they might get upset by the Pelicans. That might be the one team in the first round I could see the Pelicans winning because the Clippers will give them an assist. They will help them beat them. That's how bad the Clippers are when it comes to closing out games.
honestly, this might be the most unpopular opinion that I'm about to say right now, but I think what the Clippers really need to do is give some of these star players time off and load manage them. And as weird as that sounds, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden just look gassed right now. They look sluggish. They were not ready to go a full 82 games or as often as they're playing. You could tell. And at this point, I'm not sure if it's beneficial for the Clippers to keep playing them because, quite frankly, they're gassed. They look almost done already, and we're not even there.
Did you see the game last night against the Sixers? The Sixers pretty much controlled the entire game, and they came back. But it took everything they had to come back and barely beat the Sixers. But they had to get an assist by the refs with some horrible no calls late in that game. I'm with you. You can look at their guys, and to their credit, PG, Kawhi, and Harden they've played a lot of games. They've gone out of their way more times than not to be there, to be present for their team. But I think it's taken a toll on them because we're talking about guys, Brett, all in their early 30s, all who have their own injury issues, and they're playing big minutes late into the season. It's a struggle for them. It really is. I don't understand why they don't play Terrence Mann, who's a very good player, more minutes. Why they don't, even though he's not a young guy, he's younger than them. Give Norman Powell more minutes, but But you're right. You look at them top to bottom, and they look like a team that's already played 82 games. They look worn down. The Clipper team that went into the All-Star break, Brett, looked like one of the 5 best teams in the NBA. The team that came out on the other side where you thought they'd be rested and ready to go, it's like they never got their legs back.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't think it's beneficial for them to continue to try to play Leonard, George, Harden, and them heavy minutes. So, like, normally this is the time of the season where you want to ramp it up. Clippers, I think, got to do the opposite. They got to ramp it down a little bit for them, and then maybe with like a couple games left, ramp up their minutes or something. However you want to do it, but they'll need to do something. Otherwise, if they matched up against the Pelicans the way they're playing, give me the Pelicans. And I'm a huge believer in playoff Kawhi Leonard, but I'm not sure at this point if I'm going to see playoff Kawhi Leonard. And not to mention, as good as Kawhi is in the playoffs, you're also dealing with James Harden, who probably counteracts whatever Kawhi Leonard's going to do.
That possibility is very much there. That's a reality. And here's the thing. You and I think that it's a possibility should they meet. The Pelicans have a legit shot, and I'm not a big Pelicans fan, but I think they could beat the Clippers in a series. So I guess my question to you is, what would be a favorable first-round matchup for the Clippers? Because they don't match up well with OKC. They don't match up well with Minnesota. Like, I don't know who they match up well with. You could say Dallas, but nobody can guard Luka on the team.
As weird as it is, it would probably be, and I would say, Dallas or Phoenix. As much as you can't guard Luka and Kyrie, I'm confident in their ability to guard everybody else. But I think the big thing to remember with those two teams, and this is where I think that this really might benefit the Clippers, neither of those teams like to run in transition. They're not gonna wear the Clippers down that way. They need an older team that really doesn't move a lot on offense, and they don't like to run either. So I think the Suns fit that bill. They don't have a lot of ball movement on offense. They don't get out in transition, and weirdly enough, they're the worst offense in the league in the fourth quarter.
And you can see it though, right? When you watch them play. So, because I've heard a lot of people make the argument, well, Durant is capable of creating for others. He is. Bradley Beal the same way, Booker the same way. But here's the thing. None of them are natural point guards. None of them are natural shot creators for others. That's not their strength. And when you look at Frank Vogel as a head coach, what is he known as? He is a defensive-minded head coach. You watch Phoenix play, they don't run sets. They're literally playing street ball. They're playing street ball. They don't run sets. They play a lot of ISO ball. And you get those tired legs late in the fourth quarter and you've been playing ISO ball and teams start trapping you or running a second guy at you, it wears on them. They are horrible in late game situations, and that should not be the case when you have 3 guys that can put the ball on the floor, create for themselves and others, and they're all effective shooters at all 3 levels. That should not be the case. And you look at Phoenix, I could go bigger picture. Phoenix should not be fighting to get out of the play-in. Even if they're a horrible defensive team, and they shouldn't be fighting to get out of the play-in.
Yeah, and I think a big issue right now with Phoenix is an issue I was saying before the year, right, is I was worried about their shot diet because I thought between Booker, Beal, and Durant, they all like to take similar shots. So in all reality, all I have to do is kind of mark certain spots on the floor, and I can probably guard all 3 of them because they all like to attack from very similar ways and very similar angles. That's proven to be true. The defense looks like they know what the Suns are going to do before the Suns even know what they're going to do in the fourth quarter. And I think something that's been noticeable too is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is an absolutely phenomenal player. He doesn't have the legs to get to the rim a lot of the time, though. He can't blow by most forwards or, he can't blow by a lot of guys anymore. He can get by centers, but not against forwards anymore. And I think that really hurts him in the end because now you're forcing him to take a lot of really tough mid-range jumpers. And if it falls, great, but that's a low percentage shot where you don't really want to take.
And isn't that an example too of why they need a point guard? Like, you watch them and KD's either bringing the ball up or Book's bringing the ball up. Sometimes Bill is, but that increases his usage rate, right? We're talking about a guy who's 36 years old. He's a great player, but Father Time is indeed undefeated. He doesn't have the legs to blow by wings anymore. He doesn't blow by wings. And I would rather have Kevin Durant moving off the ball, catching and shooting, or at least catching the ball off a screen and being in a position where he can attack or raise up instead of him just dribbling the ball up and then trying to attack. You watch Phoenix play, and I'm sure there's Suns fans out there, they can acknowledge this. They don't get easy baskets. And that shouldn't be the case when you have three guys like that and you have capable role players like an Eric Gordon or a Grayson Allen who are effective catch and shoot guys. I look at them, and here's the thing. They're everything I thought they would be when they put that team together. They are exactly what I thought they would be when they said, now they got Bradley Beal. And I was like, yeah, you got Bradley Beal. What does he do for a team? How does he make you better? Is he a winning player? He puts up numbers, but I don't see Bradley Beal as a winning player. And there's been no disappointment. They're exactly where I thought they would be when they made that move.
Yeah, definitely not where they thought they'd be, but Arizona got knocked off. Clemson to the Elite Eight. Yep. Congratulations to Clemson for making it that far. That's for sure. No, Clippers versus Kings would be a fun series.
Yeah, because now you're talking about an older team that struggles on defense at times versus a younger team who don't play defense at all. So I would say that would be a fun series, but I feel like that would be De'Aaron Fox's series to lose because there's nobody on the Clippers that could slow him down.
I can tell you exactly what would happen with that series. They would start out with Zubac at center, and then the Kings would just sit there spamming handoff. De'Aaron Fox pulls up from the mid-range or three because, Zubac ain't leaving the paint.
Here's the thing.
It would just be the Kings spamming handoffs and just shooting because Zubac won't leave.
Because he stays in drop coverage, right? He stays in drop coverage. And here's the thing. I like Zubac as a player. I think that Zubac would be one of the best backup centers in the NBA. The problem is he's the Clippers starting center. And he lacks the quickness or the lateral movement to play in space. And everybody that plays the Clippers know one thing. If we do a pin down or we do any kind of two-man action, we can get whatever shot we want because Zubac will always do drop coverage. And I know Patrick Beverley coins this phrase, but when he's out on the floor more times than not, Big Z is a cone. He is a big 6'11" cone.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And of course, Mo, we got to get to your segment, man. We got to see who's got to do better with Mo better this week. So, Mo, would you like to start or would you like me to?
Let me go. Mine is real quick. It kind of came to me a couple of days ago. I thought I was going to go one way and then went another. We do these things in real time. And I would say do better, Golden State Warriors front office. Your team is in purgatory, and you had an opportunity to do what I would call a legitimate rebuild. And you could have kept Steph, and you could have been relevant by putting some younger legs around him and have or call it a mini rebuild. But at some point, you have to recognize that everything that you've done with that core, and when I say core, we're talking Green, we're talking Thompson and Curry, it's a wrap. That core has ran its course, and I think it's time to reset. And I think what they've tried to do, or what they've done to a fault, like other dynasties have done, they kept saying, we got one more run on us, Brett. We got one more run. We could do this. And that's not the case. And it's frustrating to me as a fan of the game because I'm looking at Steph, and I think Steph is still playing at a high level. I look at Steph and go, I can see this guy playing at a high level for another 2, maybe even 3 years, but it will be wasted if they stay with that core. You have to let that go. And look, I don't think Draymond Green has great value in a trade, but I think there are teams out there that would value his services, even with the headaches that come with it. I think you've got to move on from Andrew Wiggins, because as much as I like Andrew Wiggins, too many times his mental isn't in lockstep with his physical. And you just can't have that kind of inconsistency all the time. It's okay to try to put Kuminga up front or put Kuminga with Steph and add some pieces around that. I think what hurt Golden State more than anything, Brett, we're looking at them right now today. But what happened with them is they got a few things wrong, right? James Wiseman, they got that really wrong. They got it. And I've heard people say, like, they traded Wiseman. Wait till he gets to Detroit and he's putting up 20 and 10 when he gets his shot. And I was like, what are you talking about? Wiseman is not that dude. What? Look, he's one of those guys who has all the talent in the world, Brett, all the talent in the world. But he has zero dog in him, zero dog. And he's got a lot of quit in him. At best, he's a role player. At worst, he's kind of like just another more athletic version of Darko, right? Like the Warriors got it that bad. The second thing they messed up with is Jordan Poole turned out to be a great draft pick, helped them win a title, but because he became kind of a headache in the locker room, or maybe it was just a problem between him and Draymond, they didn't get real value from moving Jordan Poole, right? Not really. If you think about it, you moved a 25, 26-year-old who can give you 20 on a given night coming off the bench for a 36, 37-year-old point guard that is well past his prime and is not part of your future. And you did that because you really thought you had one more run in you. I just need the front office to do better. And granted, it's a new front office because it's under the leadership of Mike Dunleavy Jr. I need Mike Dunleavy Jr. to make the hard choices and do better as a GM.
I never understood the Wiseman pick, just because when have you really seen the Warriors throughout their run really emphasize the center position?
Facts.
Like,
but if you ever saw Wiseman play, he didn't play like a big. You know what I mean? Like, he wanted to step outside and shoot jump shots. He's soft. He's not physical. And he's got a low motor. Like I said, he's got zero dog in him. And you're not going to make it in any sports league if you ain't got no dog in you.
You know, something was up when the GM bounced, even when ownership offered to extend his contract. Absolutely.
Yeah, Bob Myers looked around and said, yeah, this is looking more like the Titanic. Let me raise up. Right. Bob Myers knew what time it was.
I would say my do better moment, it's really stems from they did mess up with the Chris Paul deal. I always love seeing you, Con Man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Con Man.
Mine is actually from a sports analyst, and this actually caused a huge stir in the And One podcast Discord page. Mike Greenberg goes on and says UConn would be competing for the play-in tournament. I need everybody to just come back down to reality and do better, especially when it comes to Mike Greenberg saying that. Here are the facts. First off, college isn't as polished as the NBA. They use a lot of tactics that are really, outdated, schemes that are outdated. It just really wouldn't work against NBA caliber talent. But I think the bigger thing that we are missing here is even your top college team. What do you say? The best college team this year might have 2 or 3 NBA caliber prospects. The worst NBA team, let's take the Wizards, had 15 NBA caliber prospects that made it. So I think between talent discrepancies, schemes, UConn or your best college team from this year would be 0-82 in the NBA. They'd be picking first, and it wouldn't be even close. They'd have that first pick clinched up midway through the season. So I really just need anybody who thinks that a college team would be in the play-in tournament or have any semblance of success in the NBA, do better. Because in all reality, there's 0% chance that they would win more than 5 games. And that is absolutely on the highest end. Everybody load manages against them.
All right, so I'm going to assume those 5 games would be the Hornets, the Pistons, maybe the Wizards, maybe the Nets, the Pistons again. No, I'm just kidding.
And that
I'm just
includes
I'm totally joking, Pistons fans. I am a big Cade Cunningham fan. I do think you have a couple of nice pieces on your team. I also think you have a lot of pieces on your team that don't make sense, and they don't bring out the best in Cade Cunningham. Like with a guy like him, you're supposed to put people with him that complement his skill set. You know what I'm saying? Like you know what he does best. This is like franchise building or roster building 101, and they just went out and got guys. And I'm not going to kill the Pistons. Look, you know what? Every year is a new year. So next season or this coming off season, when you guys are in the lottery again, you might get that guy to put alongside him, and we'll see.
with Cade, I want to see two. You want guys that are going to excel in transition because Cade can absolutely, and Jaden Ivey can really get you going in transition.
Yes,
And
yes,
ideally, that's where you want them to be. And in the half court, you need athletic guys that can shoot because
right.
both of them all ideally are slashers. So give them a team where you can let them get to the rim and have 3 guys to kick it out to on the perimeter.
Right.
I think that would be the ideal Pistons roster construction.
And look, I do like Jalen Duren, so I don't want to act like their bigs are all bad. I like what Jalen Duren is and what he can be going forward. I like Thompson as well because I look at Thompson and I'm like, this kid looks like he's going to be all NBA defense for the next decade. I think that's how gifted he can be on that end of the floor, and I think if he polishes off his offensive game to complement that, he's going to be a terrific all-around player. So I'm not saying the cupboard is bare. Let's just say that the cupboard, you just need to go shopping a little bit better. Like, I don't know, don't go to the Dollar General, go to Walmart. Do better.
That's fair. Well, Mo, this is kind of what I got really excited about. So last week, for anybody, because I know y'all it's the first day of March Madness, I get it. So for anybody that didn't catch it, we did our Mount Rushmore of point guards and shooting guards. And honestly, we had so much fun that this week we thought we'd bring you our Mount Rushmore of 4 best small forward and power forwards. And obviously, we are building towards we're going to be doing centers probably next week, so it's going to be a great time. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give you our Mount Rushmore 4 greatest small forwards and power forwards of all time. And me and Mo, we normally do all of our list post merger. You know, no disrespect to the guys who played in, before 1978. You know, some phenomenal talents. But this year's draft is weak and top picks will be. That's true. I think my top 3 picks is I have Alexandra Shaw, Sar, Rasheer, and then I think when you get one American in there, I think Reed Shepherd could very well go third because of how elite he is shooting the ball. But no, I agree with that. Most of the picks this year are going to be coming overseas, at least in the top of the draft.
I think Edey's interesting because he's an old school type of center. And I know a lot of people will make the case that kind of guy can't be effective at the next level. But let me push back a little bit. That kind of guy might not dominate the league or be a superstar, but can he be an effective player that impacts winning? And remember, we're talking about a young player who can continue to develop and hone his skills on both ends of the floor. So I think Edey can be a good NBA player. I don't want to jump the gun and start talking about star or superstar, but I think that he's got the kind of competitive nature about him that he wants to be great. And even if he doesn't reach it, I think at a minimum, he's going to be an effective player in a certain role on the right team.
Rob, that's also a good guess. It'll be interesting. I'm excited for the draft.
As am I.
I was thinking, I was going to talk to you. We should do like a NBA draft watch along too. That'd be a lot of fun.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen. That's going to be a blast.
Bet. Yeah. So, of course, I think Zach Edey, I think Zach Edey, everyone says it's just a limited mobility. He's going to have trouble playing in space.
Sure.
I think there's hope, obviously, because I think you can look at someone like Brooke Lopez. Brooke Lopez is as limited as the tree I have outside my house, and yet he is absolutely still killing it. It really comes down to this. Get him in the right situation with strong point of attack defenders, the right coach who's going to use him in drop coverage, and the right personnel. I think he can be effective, but he is a player that has to go to the most perfect situation, and you get just the right personnel. Boom. And I think he'll be money.
No, I'm with you. He, like I said, I think he's going to be a good NBA player, but he does need to be in a system to where he's got those kind of guys, some really good wing defenders, a point of attack defender ahead of him, because he is going to be in drop coverage. Every time he's put in pick and roll, by default he's going to drop. So they're going to have to find a way to be better on the point of attack to give him a break. But that doesn't mean we're talking about a guy, 7'4" with long arms, that he couldn't be still being an effective rim defender and an effective roller. So again, there will be other guys drafted ahead of him. I just think that anybody that just writes him off as somebody that can't play in today's NBA, I just want to push back and think that on the right team in the right situation, he can be an effective player.
Conman is down for a draft show, and Conman, you have an invite if you ever want to come on the show and talk some.
Absolutely.
Come on, let's do it.
We'd love to have you, Conman.
Cody Williams, younger brother of Jalen Williams, earned himself some consideration in the draft too. Yeah, we mentioned him last week. Edey is stiff. He'll never be an all-star. I don't think he'll ever be an all-star.
Yeah, I'm not talking all-star.
I think he can be like an impactful rotation player.
We just talked about a guy who came out with similar skills, similar flaws physically, and he worked himself into being a role. We're talking about Big Z with the Clippers, right?
Oh,
yeah. You're telling me, because already right now, offensively, he's better than Big Z. So, yes, he's going to have his struggles defensively, but can he be effective in a role? I think he can be an effective role player.
275 and 6'9", powerhouse inside. Ooh. Well,
now is that a Zion 275 or is that a Karl Malone-ish 275? No, I'm kidding. Look, Zion has had a terrific season. He's held up for the most part, and I give the kid all the credit in the world. He's had a really good bounce back season, and that's why the Pelicans are in the position that they are in right now. Hopefully they get BI back healthy, and they'll be fun to watch.
Zebo 275. So that means that DJ Burns hood, bullies get bullied. Got it.
Right. If you're Zebo, that guy's a problem.
All right. No, you know what? I'm definitely give him a watch this week. That's for sure. I haven't seen DJ in action, so definitely going to be watching them this week. But why don't we get into our Mount Rushmores, Mo? And, we can start off with small forward. I think we can agree with at least two for sure.
So I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, that number one, because we know number one, I've got LeBron. You might have somebody else. You might have Adrian Dantley. I've got LeBron. That's just me.
I got Tobias Harris at number one. No, yeah, I got
your list is flagrant.
Yeah, I got LeBron James, and I have Larry Bird at 2.
I have Larry Bird at 2 as well. I thought 1 and 2 was easy. We might disagree. After that, I've got KD at 3.
Yeah, it's funny because this is interesting to me because a lot of his best years came before the merger. My actual list, I have Dr. J and then KD.
Yeah, so I thought about Doc because my uncle used to use this line about Doc. He used to, and it might still hold true to some degree. He would always say he's your favorite player, right? And that might be the case. Look, Doc he's just iconic. So I don't have a problem with anybody that has Doc in their top 5 at all. I had KD in there because I do think we have some all-time great players, but there are some guys right now who are all-time great players. So I think when you have guys like LeBron and KD who represent the current NBA, to go with a Larry Bird. You have Doc. I actually went a little further back. I went Elgin Baylor, but that's cool.
That's fair enough. And my Doc and KD like separation isn't actually that far off. Even if we go to like, if I reference my all-time players of all time, I have like Dr. J 13 and KD's like 15. Like they are really close to each other. So to me, they are really close, and you can go either way. Honestly.
I love Doc. You got Doc 13?
Oh yeah, I love Doc. Because I tried to include his work in the ABA too, and I think that really opens up his dominance.
And he should get credit for all that, but 13? Wow. Respect.
His work against in that 76 ABA finals against 3 future Denver Nuggets, he absolutely lit them up to the tune. I believe it was like 38 a game. He was insane. He did so much dominant work in the ABA, it was too tough for me to ignore, honestly. And we're doing small forwards, John. I have Tim Duncan over KD, and I higher up all the time. But
as do I.
I have him under power forwards. But
so so your 5 is LeBron, Bird, Doc. You have KD or you don't have KD?
Oh yeah. My list is Bron, Bird, Dr. J, KD, and then if I stretched it, if I went to number 5, it would be Elgin Baylor at 5.
Yeah, so that's what I went. I went with Baylor. And I honestly I was tempted to put Pippen in there. I was tempted because if you think about it, we're talking about all-time great small forwards. He kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit because to me it should be a badge of honor. Somebody said, "Look, you're one of the greatest complimentary superstars ever." I would take that. You're a member of 2 3-peats all time. I think he's 8-time All-NBA defense, 7-time All-Star. Like Pippen's career stands on its own. But yeah, I feel you on that. Look, you could give honorable mention to guys that go way back in the day, like John Havlicek, Hondo, right? Whoa, that's not Julius Erving disrespect. I love Doc. I'm just saying, if you think about all the great players that ever played in the history of basketball, you might be the only person that got Doc 13. You're the only one. Matter of fact, I would go so far as to say even his family don't have him 13.
Played one-on-one versus Dr. J, and wow, that is amazing. I'll have to check out that article because that is amazing.
You play one-on-one? Comment, you got to tell us who won.
See, you mentioned
him. John, I mentioned him. Yeah, no doubt.
I actually have John Havlicek and then Scottie Pippen. I think he's right up. He's right up there. He's easily in my top 7.
Yeah, look, if we're gonna acknowledge some of the greats of today, we have to balance it out. Yes, John Hondo Havlicek is one of the all-time great small forwards. You could have thrown in somebody that nobody really talks about. What about a Rick Barry? Let me throw some honorable mention love to a Dominique Wilkins, right? I'm just saying there's some guys out there that get lost a little bit in history, but yeah, there's some truly great players. But I like your 5. I like your 5 a lot. I actually think the power forward is going to be more entertaining. I
agree. And now I think this is tough. First, I need to ask: is Tim Duncan a power forward or a center to you? Because
I'm going to go with what most people see him as power forward. I've always thought that he was both, but I'm comfortable with calling him a power forward. So I've got Timmy number 1 at power forward. Now we might disagree on that, but I've got him number 1.
Oh, I'm cool with either one. I just wanted to make sure, because if he's a power forward, he's number 1 on my power forward list.
I'm with you.
And it's funny, we talk about Tim Duncan. I saw a TikTok, and people are trying to argue that Anthony Davis offensively is just as good as Tim Duncan was offensively, and I thought it raised an interesting debate.
So there's a confusion, right? There's your skill and your talent versus what you do when you're actually on the floor. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
Anthony Davis is more skilled than Giannis. He might be more naturally talented than him. But more times than not, when they match up, Giannis is going to get the advantage more times than not. Because he's a dog, 365, 7 days a week, 24/7, the whole nine. And sometimes Anthony Davis is a dog, and sometimes he disappears. That's the plight of it. By the way, just to put it out there, an honorable mention in power forwards, I've got Anthony Davis as an honorable mention. I don't have him in my top 5.
Yeah, I think people forget that the most important thing to being an elite, like all-time great on offense is consistency. Tim Duncan may be the most consistent player that we've ever seen. He had that in spades. There really wasn't many nights, and Mo, were able to watch Tim Duncan live more than I was. I caught him when I started watching in like the last 5 years of his career. How many times did you watch prime Tim Duncan go, "Oh, I needed him to be better. He left a lot on the table."
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing it. Look, as a Laker fan, let me say this. A lot of times you can see highlights and people go, "Man, Shaq gave Tim Duncan work." Trust me, there were more than enough times in those series that Tim Duncan gave Shaq more than his share of work. The Spurs won some of those series as well. Tim Duncan, to me, he might not have the best highlight reel in the world, but if you watch him play and what he does on both ends of the floor, his ability to shoot from 15 feet away with that banker from the left or right block, his post-up game, his patience, his timing when he block. And, a lot of guys block shots and they block it for show and they send it out of bounds. Tim Duncan blocked shots the way Bill Russell blocked shots. He blocked it to keep it and retain possession. That's the kind of player Tim Duncan was. I'm not going to argue about there's a few guys. Look, Kevin Garnett, talent-wise, I thought Kevin Garnett was more talented than Tim Duncan, and more athletic, but not a better basketball player.
Oh, what could have been if the Timberwolves didn't inevitably burn like 4 first-round picks to try to sign Joe Smith and getting caught?
Well, wasn't that the deal that McHale and Ainge made? Like they're friends, right?
Yeah.
And they were trying to do something. They were being Celtics again, and they were trying to do something shiesty, and they got caught and they got burned.
Yeah, they were trying to sign him for like 3 years under the table so they can get his bird rights, and then they were going to sign him to the max when they could go over the cap. Except they were caught and ended up losing out on like 3 or 4 first. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I remember that. So we agree Timmy's number 1. We're probably going to disagree in order of 2, 3 to 5. But my guess is we're going to have some of the similar guys here. You might have Dirk number 2. I've got Karl Malone number 2.
No, I got Karl Malone number 2. I
Great minds.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a lot of people will say like, "Oh, by the way, thanks for tuning in, Chris. Appreciate you."
Hey, what's up, partner?
At the end of the day, a lot of people will try to I think they give too much credit to Stockton almost, because they'll go like, "Well, he had Stockton, but Malone could create his own shot too. Like, he was an offensive powerhouse, and he would hustle on D. He knew how to play defense too." So
I think they forget that Karl Malone made all NBA defense multiple times. Yeah, Malone had Stockton, but Stockton had Malone. Like, if I'm a point guard and I want to get some assists, and some of those are easy assists, I'm going to get the ball to Karl Malone. What separated Karl Malone and Charles Barkley, even from the power forwards of this era, those two guys ran the floor like deer and they're completely different body types. And both of them ran the floor in a way that you don't see guys run the floor now at that size. Now, Barkley was a better ball handler. Malone couldn't handle the ball the way he did. But Karl Malone sprinted on both sides of the floor, and he would bury you under the rim, catch the ball, and you were forced to foul him. His secret power, it wasn't just his strength. It was the fact that he went to the free throw line 10 or 12 times a game. And that was back in an era where you didn't just get fouls for people looking at you harsh. So I think Karl Malone is underappreciated because he also had a reliable 15, 16-foot jump shot, Brett. High basketball IQ. Look, the only thing that's missing from his resume, you and I would agree on, is he didn't win a title. But I'm not going to hold that against him. The same way, if I'm a football fan and I admire great quarterbacks, I don't hold that against Dan Marino. Real recognizes real. Shout out to Cottrell.
Tune in every Saturday to catch up, by the way. Got you. So who do you have at 3? I'm curious.
I've got Dirk. I think that people underrate Dirk's overall career. We're talking about a guy who was before his time, 7 feet tall, could post you, could put the ball on the deck, could shoot with range, and he led a team to two trips to the NBA Finals. And remember, Dirk didn't bully ball you. He did it with skill. He did it with agility. He did it with efficiency. Dirk was unique. Now, I know you don't appreciate Dirk as much as I do because you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan and you were a lot happier getting tractor trailer for Dirk. But I'm sure Mark Cuban would never make that trade again and do the reverse and trade Dirk for tractor trailer.
Oh, you know me. I got my tractor trailer jersey hanging up in my closet.
My guess is it'll stay there forever.
Yeah. And that's fair too. Honestly, with all these lists in your Mount Rushmore, it really comes down to what do you prefer?
It is.
Right. At the end of the day, for example, a lot of people I think overvalue rings. To me, rings do mean something, but at the end of the day, I feel like there's just a lot more to rings, even just the individual ring itself. What did you do? How dominant were you?
Yes.
Like, you gotta take individual performance to me when it comes to rings and like playoffs.
And we're in agreement on that. I think rings have value in different discussions, but if we're just honoring and recognizing the greatness of a player, I know what Karl Malone was. I'm a Laker fan. I hated when the Lakers played against Karl Malone. I think people don't realize this. So how many times have you heard Kendrick Perkins go, "Oh my God, they played against plumbers. Jeff Hornacek and John Stockton were these skinny, scrawny guys playing against plumbers." That Utah Jazz team swept a Lakers team that had all-star Shaquille O'Neal, all-star Eddie Jones, all-star Nick Van Exel. Matter of fact, Kobe was an all-star as a 6-man. They swept that team. Don't tell me they're plumbers when you can sweep that team. And the next time they played that team, they didn't sweep them. They beat them in 5 games. That's 2 years in a row that they whitewashed that team. So don't tell me they're plumbers. And by the way, in the fourth quarter, Karl Malone guarded Shaq, and Shaq did nothing. And on the other end, Shaq tried to guard Karl Malone and got eaten alive. Trust me, I watched the games. I was throwing things at my TV. I saw it.
No, that's fair. Love the show right up. Appreciate the support, Con Man. This next one is tough because there's so many different ways I could go with it. Now, when I look at this,
by the way, I'm just gonna put it out there before you say it. I have Giannis in my top 5 too. I'm just putting it out there.
I was gonna say I try to take one of my most important things is peak, and longevity is a factor for sure. But I think Giannis had such an absolutely better peak than a lot of these guys, and I think his peak is untouched by most of these power forwards. So at number 3, I actually have Giannis. I already think he's cracked that top 3. He at worst he's in the top 5, I think. But I have him top 3. You can call me a homer if you'd like, and that's okay. But I think when you start adding in peak, and not to mention, you watch him, he's a playoff riser. People want to say, well, he threw the ball away against Miami. Okay, but that doesn't erase all the great playoff moments he had. People talk about against Boston in that game 6, they failed to mention he had 44 and 22 to try to close them out. Unfortunately, the supporting cast couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. And of course, there was the all-time great playoff run already in 2020. And not to mention, we haven't even gotten to the DPOY, multiple MVPs. I think Giannis has just had such an insane peak that it's so hard to touch that I have no problem putting him already in the top 3, and he's not done yet.
So we're very similar. I have Timmy, I have Malone, I've got Dirk, I've got Giannis, and I'll put it out there. Yes, I've got that. My 5 is Barkley. That's all 5 of my guys. I thought about Kevin Garnett, but the truth of the matter is, I don't think he was ever as dominant as anybody on my list. He was terrific, but as dominant as any of them, I don't think so. And I know they're going to say, well, Garnett has a championship. He does. later in his career with Ray Allen and I value that. I do. But look at my list. Charles Barkley, everything that his teams were because of him. And he didn't play with stacked squads. He got to that Sun squads, and that was nice. And what did he do? He led them to the NBA Finals. What is missing on his resume? He didn't win a title. Now we can go into a whole nother discussion. What does Charles Barkley and Karl Malone have in common? They played that one guy in the finals. Bad luck of the draw. But I think that Giannis was dominant. Timmy was dominant in a different way. And the thing about Giannis is, Brett, let's not forget, he's not done. He's not done. His story is not over. I don't think you want them to win the title this year. I don't think they're going to win a title this year, but do I think Giannis is going to win another title in his career? Absolutely. Absolutely believe that. So he's not done yet. And I think he's going to win another MVP. And I think he's going to win another Defensive Player of the Year. He's not finished yet adding to his legacy. And can this list change? Sure, because there are some guys currently playing right now. And if I was going to give out an honorable mention, Brett, I want to acknowledge somebody who's great, and we always hear his name mentioned. Kevin McHale is an honorable mention for me. Great player. Elvin Hayes, the Big E, great player. And again, like I said, Anthony Davis, if you just went on straight numbers, his numbers lines up with everybody on my list. But the difference is the most success he ever had was as a number 2. All these guys right here, they were the men on their teams.
Yeah, we almost have the same. I actually have Dirk at number 6.
Ouch!
I'm just outside. Actually, yeah, because I have Kevin Garnett at 4.
I'm not again. And I'm a big KG fan, so I'm not mad at anyone who has Garnett on his list. He's just I have him literally. Him and Dirk revert, I have him 6 on my list. You know what I'm saying? So I love your list. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
And then my number 5 was Charles Barkley. I think
round amount of rebound.
And honestly, my lists do change when I do more research, and maybe I'll switch it up. Maybe Dirk will crack it. But I do love Charles Barkley's game. I do love Dirk's game. I do love Kevin Garnett's game, but at the end of the day, I think Kevin Garnett was just the greatest two-way player of them all. And let's not forget, in that 2008 title run, who was the best player on the team? It was Kevin Garnett. People say, well, Paul Pierce won the MVP or the Finals MVP. But in all reality, Kevin Garnett was DPOY and 3rd in MVP voting. And he was giving you the similar offensive output while giving you DPOY caliber defense. So
I agree that he was their best player. He wasn't their best player in the finals. Paul Pierce he wasn't just giving work to Trevor Ariza. I know a lot of Laker fans go, well, he was killing Ariza. He was killing Kobe too. God rest Kobe's soul. Kobe couldn't guard him. He couldn't guard him. He was too strong for Kobe, and when Kobe pressed up on him, he would spin off of him. Like, look, I could tell you about certain games and moments. But the moment I knew the Celtics were going to win the title that particular year was the game, I believe it was game 4 or 5. The Lakers were up 24 in the first half. And Paul Pierce and Ray Allen led a furious comeback. They walked us down and they beat us. And I was so angry. But again, to your point, the defensive catalyst in that run was Kevin Garnett.
The big difference, I think, between Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan, if anybody wants to know, I think in terms of being a stationary rim protector and protecting the basket, Timmy had KG beat, whereas I think Kevin Garnett was just more versatile. He's more switchable. He was a lot quicker to react. I think Tim Duncan had some blind spots that Kevin Garnett just did not seem to have. And at the end of the day, defensively, I think they're actually a lot closer than people think, but I still prefer Timmy's rim protection. But yeah, Kevin Garnett's just an all-time great defender.
No, you hit it on the head. The difference between Duncan and KG was KG could play in space. KG could go out and guard your small forward. He could spin and switch and be on your 2 guard. Like, Kevin Garnett moved like a much smaller man. I'm talking about prime Kevin Garnett. Now, he was still elite late in his career, But I remember him when we were calling him the nickname, when we were calling him the kid, and he was the best player in the Timberwolves. And one of the reasons why that team was such a good team was because he could literally guard 1 through 5 at an elite level. So look, I'm not debating that Kevin Garnett out of this group is probably the best defensive player. But what I would say is your impact on the floor is how I judge you. Kevin Garnett might be the most well-rounded player on it, but he was never as dominant as peak Charles Barkley. He was never as dominant as peak Karl Malone. Dirk is a league changer. We always talk about what Steph did. A 7-foot guy that can take his man away from the basket and rain on him and then blow by him. We give LeBron a lot of credit for what he did in 2016, and he deserves that coming back down from 3-1. We don't give Dirk a whole lot of credit for knocking off LeBron, Bosh, and Wade when they were still in their prime, when Wade was still Flash. Dirk did that.
And not to mention Kobe, Durant, like he walked out everybody.
Don't get me started on what he did to my Lakers. Oh my God. Like there are certain, I love to go back and watch certain series. I don't watch that series.
Don't want to watch Peja Stojakovic just teeing up.
I can't watch Peja and Jason Terry and Dirk just bomb. They just ate the Lakers alive.
Hey, I get it. Believe me, I got that series for me is the last year's first round. Honestly, you cannot pay me enough to go watch that again.
There's certain things as a sports fan. It's like certain movies. If you hate a certain ending to a movie, but it's a great movie, you'll watch the movie all the way up to that point that makes you sick to your stomach, and then you'll go, "That's enough for me. I can't watch the rest of that. Even though I know what's going to happen, I can't watch it." That's how I feel about certain series. I can't watch that. I just don't have the stomach for. I can't watch the 2008 series when the Celtics beat the Lakers. I can't watch, and this will go back. And you're probably too young to have seen this, but when the Celtics beat the Lakers in '84, I can't watch that series. Can't do it. There's certain things you can't watch. Coming up, I wasn't a Jordan fan. The only time I rooted for the Chicago Bulls was when they played the Pistons. And that's because the Pistons beat my Lakers. So I went with the theory, enemy of my enemy is my friend. But any other series, I rooted for the Knicks against the Bulls every single time. I rooted for the Blazers against the Bulls. I rooted for the Suns against the Bulls. Trust me, if I was a gambler, Michael Jordan would have put me in the poorhouse.
No, that's absolutely fair. And there you have it, guys. I mean,
I love you. I think your list might be better than mine. I love your list because, like I said, when you factor in what Garnett did on both sides of, like I said, I have no problem. I think you have a great list. And if anybody out in the chat has a list, I'd be interested to see it because, like I said, I respect people who put together some thoughtful, impressive lists. Love your list. I like my list, but I am not mad at anybody that has Kevin Garnett in their top 5 all time.
Yeah, appreciate the share, Con Man. Thank you. And then that was about it for today. Next week, we got some fun ones. I'm right now compiling another list for this year. All NBA team. However, the twist, it's my all NBA underrated team. I got a first team, a second team, and a third team for you.
Oh, I like that.
We'll have, more. We'll have another puppy prospects for you, and not to mention, we're going to be talking some of the greatest centers of all time, and we're talking some of the greatest teams of all time. Next week, it's going to be more of a throwback and appreciating our underrated players.
Before we get out of here, appreciate everybody that jumped up in the chat. Thank you guys so much for showing us the support. Everybody that's joining Brett and us live. We will also get into what's going on with the NBA playoff picture to update you where we're at. See if those Rockets catch those Warriors. Check out all the great content that we have for you at the Wire to Wire Network. You've already listened to Brett and I, so give us a like, a follow, a sub. Any type of support is greatly appreciated by the N1 podcast powered by the Wire to Wire Network. Check us out.
And there's also an N1 Facebook page. So check out the N1 Podcast Facebook page. And we try to post different, start bench cut, just ask different, questions. They can be silly basketball questions or just, regular ones. So we'll definitely appreciate you, Conman, and the offer stands. If you ever want to join the show, just reach out to one of us. We'll get you on. But we thank you once again for tuning in, and we hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page, and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.